our turn, inshallah ta'ala. So Moses is an example, and that's why his story is told in more detail than all the other prophets and messengers in the Holy Quran. And so the Pharaoh was a tyrant, an evil person, and Allah wanted to raise up the oppressed people and make them the leaders. But he was afraid that there will be a prophet who will arise out of Bani Israel, so he commanded that all of the newborn sons should be slaughtered. And they will spare the female and they will slaughter the males. So Allah inspired his mother to put him in a basket and float him in the Nile River, and he was taken away from his home. Fled from Egypt to Sinai and returned back to liberate his people. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Allah Almighty will take him in the hijrah away from his people, save him from death, being murdered by his own people, but will return him back in the Fath and in triumph, and to save his people who entered into Islam in the massive numbers at the Fath Makkah. And so Moses grew up as a very strong and mighty person, and he started to see how his people were oppressed, even though he was raised in a great amount of safety and security. And when one person in his community was in a fight with one of the Egyptian community, he went to help his side. And so he, in the fight, killed the person of the other side. And he realized this is wrong, this is haram, and he repented to Allah, and Allah forgave him. He didn't intentionally kill that person, but the person was killed in the fight. And now the rumor spread that he is a killer, and he wants to use his force and power, and he wants to become the oppressor. He wants to do evil like evil was done to him. And so the next day, that guy from his own people thinks now he has a protector. He can go make trouble, and then he can call Moses to come and fight his battle for him. And so the same thing happened, but before Moses could hurt that person, he said, yeah, we know who you are, and this is what you want to do, and this is your reputation in community. And so he realized the trouble he was in. A whole mob of people were ready to come and kill him, and he fled, and that's when he went to Sinai as a young man. The story is that when he got there, it's a desert community. There's only one well from a long ways away, and all of the camel herders and shepherds are crowding around. All the men, rough, tough guys, out in the desert all day with their herds. Now they're getting water for their animals and for themselves, and they're all crowded around there, and they're two young women, because their father is elderly, they have no brothers, and they can't get anywhere close to the water because it's surrounded by all these rough guys. So Moses goes and gets the water for them. And so they go to their father and tell about this man. So their father is grateful to him and sees he's a man of honor and good character. And Moses tells him the story. Al-Qasas is the story of Moses. He tells this man and his future father-in-law, he said, I will marry you to one of my two daughters. You can work for me for 8 years. If you like to, you can work for me for 10 years. So Moses works for 10 years. 10 years. So you thought your mahr was too high. But you didn't have to be your father-in-law's worker for 10 years, subhanAllah. So it was when Moses finished and he was going back home when he received the revelation from Allah Ta'ala, who sent him back to Egypt, to Fir'aun. Even though he had been afraid of being murdered and killed, he had the protection of Allah Ta'ala. Pharaoh as an arrogant oppressor is similar in a way to the arrogant leader of Quraysh who had istihza and ridiculed the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, ridiculed the Quran, ridiculed Islam. And it was because they're afraid to lose their power and influence over the masses of people in the society. And so Haman was one of his ministers, and he commanded him to build a tall tower so he can go up and see the God who's living up in the sky, the God of Moses. And this is, of course, the downfall of Pharaoh before he drowned. Qarun was another minister of the Pharaoh, and he was from the people of Bani Israel. But he worked for the enemy. And he was so successful, he was so rich. He would parade in the streets. He had all of his guards, a whole troop, carrying the keys only to all of his treasuries, of all the wealth that had been bestowed upon him by the Pharaoh. So they pick somebody and they give them the authority over their own person, their own people, so they become the oppressor for their own people, working on behalf of the oppressor. And people were looking at him, and these are poor people. They're laborers, and they're not free to leave. They're basically enslaved. And they, of course, it's natural. You say, oh, I wish I could have. Why doesn't God give me what he gives to Qarun? And one day, it was like an earthquake, and the earth opened up and swallowed him up and all of his men and all of his treasury. So the people who yesterday were saying, oh, why doesn't Allah give me what he gave to him? Now saying, alhamdulillah, Allah didn't give me what he gave to him. We can't even make up our mind. And so we have to be patient. Yes, Allah will give you it because by your faith, inshallah, you also get your share of dunya. Don't forget, you have a share. You work for that. That's what is halal for you. And be grateful to Allah for your of dunya, but by your iman in the creatures of Allah, the spider. And the method here, the parable of the spider, is the spider web. Bayt al-Ankabut is the house, that is the web built by the spider. It's so intricate. The spider builds that web and waits for the food to fly in it and catches it. And it's a beautiful thing, but it serves the spider very well until a storm comes and it's raining and it's windy and it blows it away, as we say, gossamer web, floating away in the wind, in a breeze, in the rain. It's destroyed. Everything the spider does. And so the spider, if he is alive, has to start all over again. And that's a parable about our life. It's kind of a coincidence, but maybe not a coincidence, that when the internet started up, we called it the World Wide Web, because we're all interconnected with man-made web, trade, education, culture, religion. All of those things are shared by the billions of people through those intricate web of society, of communication. And we all depend on it. But we think that that's going to keep us safe and secure. Now what happens? Suddenly everything gets mixed up, and they can destroy that web overnight. Everything that we depend on for our livelihood is actually not in my control. Even if you're a multimillionaire, it's not in your control. Get the wrong administration, they can screw it up. Get some warlike people, they will destroy it for all of us. So we have to cooperate. We can't just trust in our man-made system. If we don't stand up for our values and live those values sincerely, we're all in danger to lose many of the blessings which Allah has bestowed upon us. May Allah Almighty keep our community safe and secure and happy in iman and health in this Ramadan and throughout the year. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.